Good morning, YouTubers. So the time, okay, well, we finished the Grudge series. We finished the Game of Thrones series, and those were my two series. And then I did a couple of other reviews and stuff. And now I want to do a review on The Great Gatsby. Oh, by the way, today is October 25th. I think it's Wednesday at 8:17. I like to do that, not just for you, but for me, because most days I wake up, I have no idea what time or day it is. I really don't. And it bothers me because some doctor asked me if I knew what day it was or what time I don't know. Asked me what day it was. I think it was at Morton Plant Hospital. I was like, you know, can we just deal with what I'm here for, which was I was in physical pain? No, they don't want to ask you about the physical pain. They want to aggravate the shit out of you with questions that I don't fucking have the answers to. Ask fucking Alexa, okay? She knows what fucking day it is. Anyway. I want to talk about The Great Gatsby. Now, I had read, children's books when I was a kid. I had favorites, I'll talk about my favorite children's books in another video. But anyway, I was fortunate and privileged to have learned how to read very early in life. I mean, pretty much after I learned the alphabet in kindergarten, I began reading and writing in first grade and have had a lifelong love relationship with reading and writing. They call that literacy. Yes, as sarcastic and snide as I was in my privileged video, my grudge against privilege, I do consider literacy a privilege. I'm saying that seriously, not sarcastically. Literacy is a privilege. And I feel blessed that I can read and write. I do feel blessed about that. And I've read a lot of books, but there are people who are obsessed with reading and have read much more than I have ever read. And they know a lot more. Some people know lots of languages. Some people know lots of authors. Um, and they have lived vicariously through those books that they've read far more than I have. Um, so I'm not envious of their obsession with reading. I admire it because I sat down 2 days ago or 3 days ago to read a new book. Yeah, Nora Roberts. I'm kind of envious of her a little bit. So I didn't even want to read her book. But once I picked it up, I said, all right, let me look at this. And actually, I kind of like it. I read a few pages and then I put it down because the print's very small. And as you can see, I have to wear glasses to do reading. Take those off. But the print's very, very small. It's a paper. It's a paperback. And so I put it down after a few pages because I was straining to try to read the words. They were so small. But it's good. It got my interest right away. And that's what I need out of a book. I mean, if it doesn't get me in the first chapter, I'll never read it. It's the first chapter. The first chapter's got to get me. This one did. So, good for Nora. She accomplished that. I'm talking about The Great Gatsby, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read this, well, let me stop before I say I read this. I was introduced to this book and this author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and The Great Gatsby. I was introduced to it in high school. In English class. No, it was just a regular English class. It wasn't, AP or honors English. It was just regular English class. And but there was a lot of discussion about F. Scott Fitzgerald and The Great Gatsby. And for years, I don't know what the current feelings about the novel are, but it's considered a classic. We all know that. The movie has been put produced twice. Once Robert Redford starred as the Great Gatsby, and then another time Leo DiCaprio starred as the Great Gatsby. I saw both movies several times. I can't say, okay, when I say I've read the book, let me explain that a little bit. I can't say that I read the book from page one to the end. No, I looked at the book. And the book is, F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing is weird, in my opinion. He's a weird writer. I mean, not because the plot is weird. The plot's the plot. I mean, it's interesting, I guess. It's not, I wouldn't call the plot weird. It's the style, it's his style of writing I call weird. His style of writing is like very poetic and wordy, and there's pages that I just don't like because it like there's just pages and pages of stuff that have nothing to do with plot. It's all about the mood. And I guess that was actually pretty perfect or fitting for The Great Gatsby's plot and setting, because the setting is in the 20s and that mood was very, very important to the plot. Very important. I mean, the 20s were a wild time, you know, crazy people just being floozies, and money, you know, being the major obsession, and drugs and parties, and that still goes on. Whether that's the majority's, you know, way of thinking or not, that world, the Gatsby type of world exists. And definitely in our culture, American culture, and in other cultures, but maybe it's not majority rules thinking, but it's definitely a piece of the culture in various countries, not just America. So it is a classic novel because F. Scott Fitzgerald definitely created that mood and that setting and that theme very, very, you know, powerfully. Powerfully. I don't know what other word to use. But I could not read the book. I could not read the book from page one to the end because of the way he writes, because I don't want to spend 5 to 10 pages on a mood. I don't, you know, I just don't like that, or a setting. I'm not, as a writer, I have to force myself to spend a couple pages on details, on a feeling, or on describing the scene. See, there's a difference between Fitzgerald and Hemingway. Hemingway was more dialogue based, whereas Fitzgerald, it was more about the mood and the setting. But I saw the movies. So, you know, after the cliff notes, which filled in all the gaps for me about the characters and the plot, and then after watching the two movies, the you know, the first one with Robert Redford and the second one with Leonardo DiCaprio, and you can compare, you know, the acting and the directing and all the different elements of the films. But the story is the story, you know, the story is the story. You know, I have thought about this novel since high school. That's over 30 years I've been thinking about this novel. Why? Why should one story affect me so much? I mean, why? Why this story, this Great Gatsby story? Why is it significant to me? Why does it stuck in my consciousness? Why does it why is it when I look at the world or people, I constantly go to those archetypes that were in The Great Gatsby? What is that? What is that? Not everything is The Great Gatsby. I know that. And yet, it keeps returning to me in my mind. The Great Gatsby keeps returning to me in my mind. I look at a myrtle tree and I think of Myrtle. I look at a gas station and I think of George. I look at a fancy car and I think of Tom or Jay. I look at some snotty-nosed bitch and I think of Daisy. I look at some poor hoe trying to make her life better and I think of Myrtle. I look at somebody who's flippant and apathetic and doesn't give a shit about anything and I think of Jordan. And then I think about all the writing that I do and I think about Nick. It's weird. It's really weird. Anyway, I wanted to spend this video vlog on the Great Gatsby because, not because I think F. Scott Fitzgerald is the best writer in the whole world. I don't think he's the best writer. Actually, I think if Stephen King wrote romance, he probably would have done a better job than F. Scott Fitzgerald. I think Stephen King's a better writer, even though people get sick of Stephen King because typically we think of horror stories, and horror stories gets old after a while. But if he had written romance, I think he would have done better than Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald, as a romance writer, he's not my favorite romance writer, that's for sure. Although I agree with Nick that Jay Gatsby is a great character. I agree with Nick there. He really, really, really did everything. Everything he did was about Daisy. Everything. It was all about Daisy. Everything he did was for Daisy, for his love of Daisy. That's very romantic. Very romantic. I mean, he didn't get what he wanted. No, he got shot and killed instead. He didn't get what he wanted, but everything that he did, all his motivation was all about Daisy. And that's very romantic. That part's very romantic. It's just that I don't like the ending. The ending is not romantic. The ending is Daisy and Tom don't live happily ever after because they don't even give a shit about each other, not really. I mean, Tom protects her as family, but he'll basically screw anything. And Daisy doesn't respect her husband, even if he's protective and has money. And Nick and Jordan, they're just like single pieces of dust in the wind going, we don't know what the hell's going on. And Myrtle and George are just the poor versions of Tom and Daisy. Basically, that's all they are. Just the poor versions of them. Unhappy, married. One couple's unhappy and married with money, and one couple's unhappy and married without money. And Jay was the romantic. And then F. Scott Fitzgerald thinks that the truth of that romance is basically do everything for nothing, never get what you want, and die. Yeah, that bothers me a lot. I'm going to write. My mom always said I was going to write a great novel. She always said that. I haven't done it yet. I've written poetry, and lots of short stories like Hemingway, a lot of short stories. I really liked his style. And I thought if I kept writing short stories that eventually I would grow into this novel that that's a sort of an expectation of my destiny, if there is such a thing. I haven't written the novel yet. I used to write them so quick. I used to write romance novels in high school. I could put up a 200-page romance novel in a month in high school. It was easy. But they were cheesy, They were cheesy like little Harlequin novels, pretty cheesy. And I wanted to do something bigger and better than that. And so I've been thinking about this Great Gatsby book for 30 years, wondering if it can affect me for that long. Can I write a book that would affect somebody for that long with a happier ending? We'll see.